well. So now we've got the recording started on YouTube. I'm really excited that we're all going to be a part of this broadcast, this classroom, this lesson, whatever you want to call it. But today we're continuing with the series of breast implant illness. As you know, I shared this last week that I have been diagnosed with breast implant illness, and we will share a little bit more about that once the broadcast begins, once you hear the theme song, and we're supposed to all dance, which, by the way, Jeff, I forgot to tell you, once you hear the theme song, I expect you to dance. That's the way it goes. And so, the what?
There goes your audience.
Who know? You might make us all laugh. Who knows? But anyway, so today we're going to learn about how to heal, because it's all about being proactive, right? So we're going to learn about healing from breast implant illness. So for those of you who are joining us on YouTube later on, just know, share this with as many women, because you never know who's contemplating getting breast implants, because we live in that kind of world. So fasten your seatbelts, because we're going to learn and grow together. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who've been tuning in to the Lillian McDermott radio show, now Classroom, since 2011, or maybe you tuned in yesterday for the first time, welcome back. But if you have been told to watch today, and this is the first time that you're watching or listening on podcast or watching later on YouTube, just know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends at facebook.com/Lillian's radio show, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, it's all about living the life of our dreams, right? Because you can have all the money in the world. You could have the most college decorative education that you could wish for. But if you don't have your health, there's just something missing. And so, as I mentioned to you in the classroom last week, I had a whole classroom to myself because my guest could not make it. And, you know, that was the universe's way of saying, it's time, come out wherever you are. So this is something that I've been dealing with for the last 2 years, symptoms, crazy symptoms that, you know, if I really think about it, I've had throughout sporadically, I've had these symptoms before, but they've come out with a vengeance in the last 2+ years. When I say 2+, I mean, it's been since June of 2017. I believe that's the date, because brain fog accompanies this. So it's been 2 years and 2 months. And so with that in mind, my journey has led me to this discovery. There have been earth angels along the way who have supported me in making this decision. And so my goal is to empower all of you to journey back to health, because every symptom I've had didn't make sense to me because I am healthy. I choose health and I do things to contribute to my health. Now, I know there are people that have other conditions, and in the conditions that I've had, I've been able to improve with supplements, nutrition, pure, thoughts that are positive, and thinking about the solution as opposed to the problem. And so there have been so many things in my life that I've changed. And every time I didn't make a change, my health would improve. My health would improve. But in the last 2 years, there has been a decline in health. And I've seen it throughout my entire body. And so when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And boy, have there been a lot of teachers to guide me to where I am today. One of them is Jeff Rose, who is my teacher today in the classroom. And Jeff has over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry and is known for his work with celebrities and models. And he was a believer in plastic surgery, probably still, I'm saying if you want to try different things to look beautiful, but breast implantation, now part of what his journey was with helping women and working in that industry is now what he has his own awareness, had his own journey with the people he loves, and now he has become an advocate for people like me who did not know of breast implant illness, or there was such a thing. And for those of you who have been having all these symptoms and you have breast implants and they've been giving you medications for this, maybe this is the show / classroom / education / journey, part in your journey that needed to get you here. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Jeff Rose is here to do just that. Welcome, Jeff, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show classroom.
Thank you, Lillian. It's an honor.
Well, I must say, when I think of my journey, you're one of the top angels in my life that has, you actually are making my book, because you're in my book, and I share how when I first spoke to you, I noticed that you were pretty honest. I could feel comfortable with you right away. But then when you start talking to me about my expectations or what the expectations are, I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't expecting a brutally honest person, but you are really good at creating expectations right away. So share a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the plastic surgery industry, and how now you make it your mission to help women with breast implant illness.
Well, thank you, Lillian. And health and wellness has been really my entire life. I mean, from the time I was 11 years old, I played organized sports, even semi-pro baseball, hockey, up till I was 21. And then after that, I got into the health field of rehabilitation, nutrition, and helping people stay well, because that was my passion when I played sports. So I've never done anything outside the health industry. It's just always been my passion to take care of myself and thus help others along the way. So what had happened, I worked in the alternative health field. I have a background in that. So I know about nutrition, supplementation. I had my own health food store for 20 years, my own radio talk show for 15 years. I also, the celebrity part of it was me working in Beverly Hills for 10 years and in plastic surgery. So working 2 blocks off of Rodeo Drive, we would see 3 to 4 celebrities a day. So it was very routine. There was one time I had about 40 celebrity clients. And here I was working in the plastic surgery capital of the world, where if somebody had asked me 10 years ago, one day you're going to be helping women take out, you need to see a psychiatrist. No way. But life throws crazy curves at us, as you know.
Yes.
And 7 years ago, after we moved to Florida, my wife got sick from her implants. So my wife was a typical woman who, after giving birth to our son, she wanted implants. So being in the industry, she's like, hook me up. And of course I did. And she was very happy with them. And then about 5.5 years later, she went from this very healthy, vibrant woman, beautiful, athletic, and then she just started to not feel well. And it's a gradual process, as you know, where the immune system is the first thing to take the hit, and it's overloaded from the chemicals in the implants, which I'm sure we'll go into a little bit more at length.
Yes.
But basically, her health deteriorated over the course of 2 years. Now, 7 years ago, there was little to no information on breast implant illness. There was barely a name, breast implant illness.
Correct.
So I had to do a lot of research. Luckily, being in the industry, a lot of research in other countries where they were ahead of us, and just find out as much as I could. And just knowing about the body the way I do and health, that any foreign object in our bodies, the body can reject. So that was a starting point. You know, I've seen the body reject pacemakers, pain pumps. We know about, the hernia meshes. We know about IUDs. Even dental implants get rejected. So the body can reject any foreign object. And the reason I call breast implants a double whammy is because not only are they a foreign object, but they're two big foreign objects with 40 plus neurotoxic chemicals and heavy metals that sit millimeters above your heart and your lungs. So when you put all that together, you have potential problems of symptoms. And this was what my wife went through. And basically, after a couple years of deteriorating health, and we spoke about it. And remember, I know very well, especially working in Beverly Hills the way I did, that no woman gets implants to want to get them out. That's why this whole thing where saying that women are crazy is ludicrous, because who in the world, where they're getting something for their self-confidence, for their femininity, is going to say that's what's making them sick? It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense. It never did to me. And it's something that sometimes you just have to use your common sense about. And the thing that happened was, after her deterioration and finally speaking about it, we decided to see doctors about removing her implants. And after a few consultations, luckily, because not only do I know about, explant surgery, in the old days, if you remember, especially when I worked in Beverly Hills, women would come in with pictures of Pamela Anderson. I want big breasts, small waist, big lips. That was the look back then. Now it's the natural, healthy look. So everything has changed dramatically. And in the old days, women would explant for reasons where, because of the big implants, they were having pain in their back, neck, shoulders, chest. So they would want their implants out, especially if they were athletic. And so I knew about the explant surgery and how to do it properly. I've actually been in about 1,000 explant surgeries. I've also been filming surgeries for years. So I filmed about 400 explant surgeries. And I knew what to look for in a doctor in order to do the surgery properly. So when we went on consultations, the first couple were not so good. The doctors really didn't understand explanting. And finally, the third consultation, the doctor did understand it. And I basically kind of wanted to travel, because most women do have to travel for this surgery, because unfortunately, in my opinion, there's only maybe a dozen real good explant doctors in the whole United States. So most women have to travel. I know in our practice, 70% of women come from outside Florida. They have to travel. So we were really ready to travel if this last third consult did not pan out. And luckily it did. And she had the surgery. And she did have a rupture like you. But that's not what breast implant illness is, which I'm sure we'll get into. It's a
Yes.
symptomatic
That's my next
condition.
question. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll definitely get into
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is the typical symptoms of breast implant illness, like you mentioned, brain fog,
Yeah.
fatigue, muscle and joint pain, anxiety, went away in a matter of a very short period of time, maybe 6-7 weeks. The majority of them went away. Now, she did have a rupture and some residual silicone in her body that did cause some nerve damage, but the breast implant illness part, the symptoms did go away. So once I experienced my own spouse going through this, of course, that's an eye opener. And I realized, wow, there is something to this. And it's very real to see somebody actually get their life back, except for her pain part, was amazing. And then, because a lot of women knew of this situation, other women started to reach out to me, and I started to refer them to who I knew were good doctors to explant with. Mm-hmm. And then, as it gradually grew bigger and bigger, there were Facebook groups and a little bit more information available. And then, being in Florida, I said, I need to find a really good doctor in Florida to refer to. And that's when, after my research, I found Dr. Rankin, who I work for now. Mm-hmm. And the story how I ended up working for him was certainly not a planned scenario. It's almost something you could put in your book, probably. It really is an interesting story, because I was referring him patients, and patients were doing really well. I knew we knew how to do the surgery properly, but I referred him a model, one of the models I'd worked with in Beverly Hills, and he did her surgery. But in the process, because I knew her, I ended up taking her to the surgery, and she had asked me, do you think you could film my surgery? So when we got to her office, his office, I asked Dr. Rankin, do you mind if I film her surgery? He said, sure, get some scrubs on and film the surgery, which I did. And it kind of went viral. And, they ended up on the doctors, and it just was all over the place. Yeah. And you probably know the story. Mm-hmm. It's certainly on the internet. And so from there, Dr. Rankin's name became a lot more well-known. And it was actually when I was in the operating room doing her surgery and I was filming, Dr. Rankin and I actually, that was the first time we actually met. And, when you're in the OR, you're kind of stuck together next to each other. You can't go anywhere. And so you're kind of forced to interact. So as we were learning about each other a little bit more, he just simply said to me, I really enjoy these surgeries. I see the women getting better, and I appreciate you sending me these patients. And he just said, with your experience, would you consider working for me with these patients? And I made a joke to him. I said, well, I'm kind of doing it for free. If you're going to pay me, sure. And I really did say that. I wasn't sure if he was serious, but he was. And 2 days later, I was working for him. And I've been working for him ever since. And here it is 3 years later. Yeah. And now here we are 3 years later. And, in our office in Jupiter, we're doing more explants than anyone in the world right now. Wow. This year, we're going to do close to 800 explants.
Oh, did we lose him? Uh-oh, we lost him. Okay, so I'm sure that he will be coming back to us soon, and hopefully we'll be able to resume the conversation. So while we're waiting,
is more than anyone with Dr. Rankin.
Okay, so Jeff, can you hear me? Okay. So is it me or is it Jeff? I'm not sure. Robert? Okay, so I hope that you guys are still with me. Can you guys still hear me? Robert, can you hear me? Jeff, can you hear me? Okay, am I back?
I think we're back. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're
Okay.
good. All right.
I thought it was you, Jeff, and apparently it's me. So it's okay. So 3 years later, you are so committed to this cause,
Yes.
and you get a phone call from me, which is probably just about every woman, and I don't know how many calls like this you get a day.
20
I,
at
I
least.
thought I thought that this was going to be removed, like you were saying, you were familiar with explant surgery
Right.
to reduce the size, maybe put a smaller size, but there's so much more than that. I've after researching, there's the capsule that some doctors leave behind. There's, of course, there's the ruptures. There's the lymph nodes that need to be removed. It's much more complicated than just going to just any doctor that's just maybe never heard of it or done one surgery. You really want to have someone on your side that is going to protect you. But again, never give your power away. Ask the right questions, do the right things for your own sake. So let's start from the very beginning. From this point on, it's like, how did you know in doing your research that this was breast implant illness? Let's talk about what is breast implant illness.
Well, that's a great question because a lot of people hear that term and they're like, I never heard of that. What is that? And breast implant illness was a term that was coined about 7 years ago as somebody created a website, a Facebook group, and basically it is a subset of symptoms that develop in a woman after a period of time. It could be months after implanting. It could be 10, 15 years later. There is no specific timetable, but implants are what you call permeable, meaning they break down.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why the FDA in 2011 said that these are no longer lifetime devices. After 10 years, they wear out, they break down, they bleed. So you must either replace them or get them removed.
Yes.
And the reason for that is the outer shell of the implant. I don't care if it's silicone or saline inside.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where people get confused. They're like,
Yes.
well, I have saline, I'm safe. Well, what most people don't realize is the outer shell that encases it is silicone. And in that silicone casing, that outer shell, is 40 plus neurotoxic chemicals and heavy metals, including things like formaldehyde. So if you can imagine all of these chemicals inside your body, it causes in a percentage of women, which is estimated to be up to 40% of women, either have symptoms or will develop symptoms over time. So these symptoms, which is your immune system being overloaded, and what happens is when it reacts, it will react with an inflammatory response where the body's attacking itself. That's the main thing that happens. So then all of a sudden, you start getting things like, number one, brain fog. Everyone has brain fog with this. I have yet to meet a woman who's sick from their implants that does not have brain fog. Number two, they will have fatigue issues. It could be as bad as really chronic fatigue. Number three, they will have anxiety and racing heart, because most women that get sick, and this is a question, in fact, there were meetings in March in Washington, D.C. I attended because I've dealt with about 5,000 women over the last 7 years, so they wanted me there. And one of the questions that I was asked was, is there a certain type of woman that you've seen that gets sick from their implants? And I think most people thought I was going to say, well, somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or somebody with silicone or saline implants. And I said, no, it's actually women that have implants under the muscle. Mm-hmm. And the reason I see that in 9 out of 10 cases, and it's a theory, but it's one that makes sense. And being in so many surgeries, when the implant is what we call submuscular under the muscle, the implant is sitting right on your chest wall, millimeters above your heart and your lungs. So if you could picture all these chemicals and heavy metals just above your lungs and your heart, what happens is these chemicals get in there. They cause the rhythm of the heart to be thrown off, which is why so many get racing heart, anxiety, respiratory issues, problems breathing, and then a lot of the
check.
Exactly. Almost on everybody. And then when chemicals get into the lungs, they can dissipate through the entire body and make you sick. And this is what happens. And then there's other conditions. We hear about the symptoms, but most people really don't know what's actually happening inside of us. And things like your endocrine system being thrown out of whack, your hormones being, what can happen is you can have weight changes, weight gain with the inability to lose it. You can have hair loss, skin rashes.
Cystic acne. Cystic acne. I can tell you my symptoms.
I was well, like you just tell them it's a typical scenario.
It's one of those things where nobody would make that connection. And what I've said before, and I've said this in the classroom and the lesson that I shared, that I was diagnosed with breast implant illness, and it was exacerbated. I mean, with a car accident, with a possible rupture, that I took care of by because I saw the changes, I felt the changes, I felt the air popping, and I felt all of that. But technology today doesn't have anything saying, okay, well, if you have an MRI, a breast MRI, unless I guess the radiologist just didn't see it because it could be a leak somewhere else. Then I also had a ultrasound, and I guess the lump that I was feeling, they didn't know what it was, so they just no big deal. And so I did all the stuff. I was suspicious, and of course, the seatbelt is right around here. And so even though I had my suspicions, everything kept saying no, and the doctors just want to give you pills. And, my good fortune was, and I will say it's a good fortune, that I've changed my lifestyle so much that there was no reason to have these symptoms because they had gone away. Yes, I had felt some sporadically throughout, but they came back with a vengeance once there was that rupture. Now, we don't know if it's the implant that's ruptured or the casing or the capsule that's ruptured. Whatever it is, they're coming out. And because, the person who got the implants in 1995 is not the person who is talking to you today who felt incomplete without breasts, because everywhere you look, you have the messages that you must look like, a certain way in order to be ogled or to be revered or to be, a woman, and so being called, and I had mentioned that just go check out the class and check it out. I don't want to go through all of that because I really do want to talk about focusing on healing. So here's what I know, Jeff. You have this theory, and you say, I think that it's putting it under the muscle. Let me tell you what happened to me prior to putting it under the muscle. In 1995, I got the implants. Probably about a year or so later, the capsules, because here's what happens to the body, because we know this with food. It happens with food. It happens with other things. When we introduce something to our body that we think is good food, it's maybe frankenfood, maybe processed foods or too much sugar, the body starts looking at that food as an intrusion, no different than it would look at the implants as an intrusion. That's what I do know. And so that's why people think I'm hangry or they're like shaky. What's because your body is focusing on the detoxification of whatever you're eating, and then you have to eat again because you think you're hungry. Well, the same thing happens with the breast implants is what I know now. So what happened to me, Jeff, and I don't know if we talked about that the first conversation, the first marathon that we had in conversation was they put the muscle, it was during the time that there was a moratorium with silicone implants. I asked the question to the doctor, is there a difference between the casing for the saline and the casing for the silicone? And the doctor said, no, they're the same casing. And I said, well, what's the big deal about the silicone? And he said, precisely. He said, these are money-hungry women, crazy women that have nothing better to do. Where can I sign, doctor? That was my research back then. Now I am a totally different woman. So what the doctors did when my body started encapsulating the silicone implant over the muscle, they popped it. They would pop the capsule contracture, sending toxins into my body.
Correct.
But then I guess the body would try to work really hard. But in the meantime, I have cystic acne. I've got, thyroid condition. I've got food sensitivities, but none of that is related to the breast. So I keep going back for helping and healing and all of that. And the doctor should have said to me, I think your implants are being rejected. Instead, the doctor said, I got a good idea. Let's just put silicone in because now the moratorium is done, and let's put them under the muscle. Doesn't happen there. So we have got to be our own MDs. We've got to be our own medical detectives. And we've got to, we get to figure out whatever we're putting, whether it's injected or whether it's a prosthetic or whatever it is, we need to research it because the goal is to make money. The goal is to sell the implants. Now there's all sorts of stuff that has come from that people from us making a big stink about it. Like, this isn't going to be hush-hush anymore. So do you think that this capsular contracture, do you think that that's the body saying, you might be, rejecting those implants? That means there's a leak or something is going on.
That absolutely. When you get a capsular contracture at any level, it could be a Baker 1, 2, 3, 4 of severity, but that is a form of the body rejecting the implant. Remember, the body can reject any foreign object. When you put a foreign object in the body, I don't care if it's a knee replacement, a hip replacement, a pacemaker, a pain pump, the body says, what is this doing here? I don't recognize it. It's not part of what's supposed to be inside me. Mm-hmm. So the immune system reacts to it by forming scar tissue around it. And that's where the capsule comes in. And the nature of the capsule is actually to protect the body from this foreign object by encasing it, perfectly to stop any leakage, rupture, or anything that may happen. That's the body's natural reaction to it. But where the scar tissue becomes the culprit, because that's what we hear talked about, is you must remove all the scar tissue, which is paramount for this surgery. If a doctor does not remove 100% of the scar tissue, you can have an explant surgery and still remain sick. I know we do a couple of surgeries every month, unfortunately, on women that have already been explanted, but the doctor left scar tissue in there and the woman has remained sick for a long time.
Can they take it out, Jeff?
Yeah, we do that very often.
Dr. Reagan has been taking it out?
Yes.
Wow.
We go back in, we have to open up the patient and unfortunately scrape off the scar tissue that the original doctor left behind. And to explain why there's specialists, real specialists, and why a regular plastic surgeon cannot perform this surgery, and why you have to go to a microsurgeon and a real explant specialist to do this procedure, is because even though a plastic surgeon knows how to put them in, when you put an implant in your body, they're brand new. You take them out of the box, you put them inside the body in a healthy chest cavity, there's no problem. It's just basically his doing his artistic skill from there.
Yeah.
But years later, when you're removing them, now you have the challenge of all of the scar tissue involved. So when you go in to remove it, you must attempt always to remove it in a procedure called an en bloc. And it's pronounced ENBLOC, but it's pronounced en bloc. It's a French term because the French Canadians actually coined that term, and there's some of the experts on this. But the en bloc is simply removing the implant and the capsule in one piece. And the reason that's important is it keeps all that contamination contained so it doesn't go out into the body.
Just like cancer, when you biopsy.
Exactly. You don't want it to spread.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. So it's very important. I call it, when I see Dr. Rankin or even Dr. Dev doing an explant and doing an en bloc, to me, it's like internal artistry. The cutting technique is so much patience and skill to get that all in one piece that most surgeons just couldn't do it. And in order to accomplish that, it is vital because it does contain all that contamination that can make you sick. Now, there is a what if in this situation. There are maybe 80% of patients that get an explant where they're under the muscle, where they will get scar tissue adhesion to the rib cage. So what happens is little pieces of scar tissue will tear off of the capsule and stick to the ribs. And what it looks like when I'm in surgery, it looks like wet toilet paper. That's how thin it is. So the reason why a regular plastic surgeon, even more so than the en bloc, when they see that, they look at that and they're like, well, I'm not going to take that off, because what happens is it's literally millimeters above your lungs. I mean, it's about that much space. So a regular plastic surgeon now would be forced to do a medical procedure, and they're like, that's not what I went to school for. I'm afraid of puncturing a lung. I don't want to do that. So they just leave it, and maybe they'll make a comment like, well, your body will absorb it anyway. The body does not absorb scar tissue. In fact, scar tissue can actually grow. And so what happens is when you go to a skilled explant doctor, they peel it off. It's very much like, well, actually, here's a water bottle as a good example, I guess I can give. I think we've all tried to peel a label off of a bottle at some time in our life. And sometimes, we'll get the end of it and we'll start peeling and it peels off perfectly. And other times it tears. Yeah. And hopefully.
Great analogy. Thank you.
And I try to give something that people can relate to, because that's exactly what it's like. So hopefully it peels off perfectly, because then there's less trauma to the ribs and less soreness, of course. But if it does stick and tear, the doctor must still go back and scrape and cauterize and remove 100% of it. You can't leave even 1% of scar tissue behind. If you do, you leave the contamination behind, the chemicals, and the patient may remain sick. So you've gone through this explant surgery for nothing. So it's very important. I call it one and done. You must do the surgery right the first time. Yes. And be done with it and heal. This is about healing after surgery. So if it's done right, the good news is I call it the 95% rule, where 95% of women will make about a 95% recovery in about 12 weeks, assuming they pick the right doctor that does the surgery correctly. Yeah. As long as they do that, and you said it perfectly a couple of minutes ago, even though we're removing implants every day, that's not what it's really about. It's about getting your life back and getting back to that person you used to be. Yeah. And that's about the best way to describe it.
Yeah. You know what, Jeff, before the accident, I could do, for 1 hour that I'm doing in the classroom for the show, research and all that, and preparing for the class and all that stuff, it would take me 2 hours. So for 1 hour, it takes about 2 hours of research. I want to make sure that I know the topic just enough. I'm not the expert. I'm the interviewer. I'm the student asking lots of questions. And but now it takes me 4 hours. And then, you know, it just snowballs because you're doing the same amount of work, but now it's taking you longer, and now you're not getting your deadlines met, and then the stress for having that on. So I didn't understand it. And we're going to have Dr. Stephen Grable next week talk about how he helped me get, you know, because it's medically necessary, according to Dr. Stephen Grable, to get the implants out. And it's one of those things where, you know, you really don't know until you know, it's like until I was challenged to eat raw vegan, I didn't realize that I could feel better. And it wasn't that I was feeling bad, it's that I am feeling better. And if, you know, you don't know what you don't know until you figure it out. So I am just, because I had that experience with food, something as simple, and then have that experience with thought, you know, the thoughts in your head. And I've shared with you the last 5 months of my life, knowing that this was the root cause of all my symptoms, or most of my symptoms. I can honestly say I am looking forward to feeling better. I'm not thinking about the explant. I'm not thinking about recovery. I'm not thinking about anything other than healing. So Dr. Stephen Grable, you know, when he put all my symptoms into the computer that he has, he said, you could have lupus, you could have MS, you could have, and he started talking to me about this because he's an MD. And I'm like, nope, I can't. There's no way. Because every time I got tested, clear, everything's good. So I feel bad for women who are going through this, and there's nothing wrong with you. So what's the next thing that they're going to think about you? Well, maybe they're a little hypochondria going on. And the reality is, since I've spoken to you, I mean, it's taken so much to stay focused on being positive and knowing that this is going to be a new discovery for me, a new journey for me. But the thing is that, you know, there are so many other women who don't have someone to do the research and will get one pill after another. They might think they have fibromyalgia, and in fact, it's their breast implants, and no one is telling them that. Fortunately, I say that this classroom has saved my life, and the teachers like you have saved my life.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've been put in a very unique situation where I feel it's just my life's work. I couldn't even think of doing anything else at this point. I mean, you know, others have said I probably have the most unique background of experience just because I lived it personally with my wife for 2 years. So that's the closest I could be to a woman,
Great
I guess.
Education, isn't it? Right?
Yes, absolutely. To see that person go through it on a daily basis. And basically, I always describe it like I lost my wife for 2 years and then I got her back. So that's what the goal is. But the main thing with this is, and you said it perfectly, Lillian, is that you do have to keep a positive attitude. The hardest part with this is, unfortunately, every top doctor that does this surgery is booked out for months and months.
Yeah.
There is no top doctor that can get you in weeks or even a month or two.
Yeah.
They're just all booked out. I mean, we have 2 doctors booked out 6 months. So I
can attest to that. And I'm waiting just like everybody else is waiting.
Yes.
My number is soon. And I will say, I don't want to share my time, my date, because, you know, I just want that to be personal and private. I'll share afterwards. I'll tell you when it's going to happen, and I'll bring you in my journey of recovery. So let's talk about recovery. Let's talk about, you know, let's talk about the good news. You had said to me, and I couldn't remember last week, that you said 87% of women are 100% recovered after removing the implants. Can you share that? Because sometimes I can't remember. So go ahead.
Well, you're close. The numbers are just a little bit off, but 95% of women.
Oh, that's okay.
Yep, that's a 95% rule. 95% of women are 95% better in about 90 days. Now, I never say 100% because nothing is 100%.
Yeah.
And yes, some women do make a complete recovery. That's wonderful. But sometimes, depending on how long somebody's been sick, someone who's suffered for 10, 20 years, even longer. I have one woman recently, half her life, over 30 years suffering until she found this out. So that woman's not going to be completely better in 3 months. I mean, just common sense. A doctor told me in Canada that there's a general rule of thumb that for every year you've been sick, give it 1 month to heal. So if you've been sick for 10 years, give it 10 months. If you've been sick for 5 years, 5 months is reasonable. So it's just a guideline. It doesn't mean it won't happen faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it might not take a little bit longer.
Every
And then
little
there's
bit helps.
Absolutely. It's just a guideline.
Yeah.
But healing, a very, very important subject. You know, you mentioned diet, very important to eat clean. I've always recommended, because inflammation is the number one thing that's happening. So an anti-inflammatory diet is very important from the moment you find out that the implants may be making you sick. My experience has been 2 weeks on an anti-inflammatory diet can reduce the severity of the symptoms. And then also your body goes through something called chronic systemic dehydration, where everything is dry, your hairs, your nails, your skin, as you're drinking, you're chronically thirsty.
Yep, all the time.
You can't quench your thirst. So I always recommend that, of course, drink a lot, but I like to add 2 to 4 coconut waters a day. Coconut water tastes great. It makes you drink more, but coconut water will hydrate you a little bit more. Plus, most people don't realize that coconut water has more electrolytes than even an electrolyte drink. So it's very hydrating.
And it's God's gift to us,
healthy.
Right?
It is. Imagine coconut oil on your skin. We know the benefits and the hydration. Mm-hmm. So imagine coconut oil internally. So coconut oil, if I add those 2 things to a woman's healing protocol before surgery and after, they will do better. And it could get them to the point where their symptoms can be a little bit less severe until they make it through surgery. And then their body will start to heal on its own.
I'm going to start drinking coconut water again. I used to drink coconut water, and I stopped. I stopped drinking coconut water. I think but I do want to take a little moment here, because I want to say this within the podcast before we go into our like, for those of you who are watching on Facebook at Lillian's radio show, thank you so much. You're probably watching on different links, because I know that many of you are sharing this broadcast. But just know that you can come join us anytime at Lillian's radio show on Facebook. And after the broadcast, the podcast that we do, we will have Q&A. If you guys have any questions, to start writing your questions so that when the time comes, we will start answering your questions. So for those of you who are listening on podcast or on YouTube, I just want to make sure that you know that you can always watch us and join us in the classroom live on facebook.com/Lillian's radio show. With that being said, I also want to thank all my sponsors who make this classroom possible. And so I want to ask you to please to help me expand this classroom. And I ask that you go to whenyouneedafriend.com and become a subscriber. And while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, there's lots of different icons. There's my social media icons. Like me, follow me, share, invite your friends in this journey with us. We're all learning together. This is the stuff that you don't see on television. You'll see something like the latest broadcast or the latest news, which is, they finally made a link with the textured implants. But the verbiage they say is kind of like questionable, but that's one time. You just see it one time. No, I am going to beat this like a dead horse. Well, I hate saying that expression. That didn't sound good. But I just want to continue spreading this information, because we women are beautiful. No matter what size we are, no matter, a flat breast should be the new double D. I'm telling you right now, we're going to make the smaller breast fashionable. And so I want to encourage you, because there are organizations and companies and that are standing and saying, we want to stand with you and share this information out there, like nutrition and how to live your best life, how to face your problems, face your past traumas, how to face your addictions, whatever it is, we can deal with it. We're enough to figure this out. Sometimes you need a little help from your friend, and that's where I come in. So please make sure that when you go to whenyounneedafriend.com and subscribe, you hit the YouTube channel, subscribe there too, because when you do that, the class goes to your emails. Also, I want you to click on to my sponsors, click on the sponsors page, and figure out ways like Liberty Health Share. And let me tell you, through this process, Liberty Health Share has been fabulous. It's not insurance, it's better. And so you go to libertyhealthshare.org. There, you can just click on the links, figure out how you can join and support them. Keep Me Safe Organics. Organics, non-synthetic beauty products. Get 10% off when you enter the code Lily10. We have First Alternative Care for $45 a month for the entire household. You get family practice, dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling. You've got Dr. Stephen Grable, who said, I'm standing with you. I want this information out there. He is a functional alternative holistic doctor in Jacksonville, Florida, who helped me finally make that decision, and we'll be talking about that next week as well. And finally, we have Live Longer Medical, who helps you feel and look the best you can be. And then the pharmacy in Merritt Island. Just click on them, figure out, and then finally, you can enroll as a student and you can help as well. You're taking advantage of all this information. Be a part of my journey as well. So there's so many ways to remain connected. You can find me on podcasts. You can find me on YouTube and now Facebook, all social media. There's no excuse. Let's all stay together. And you even get my phone number is on the website. So check it out and you get my free book, 90-Day Challenge to Self-Love ebook. And, and Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to share this information. We haven't even dipped the toe into the surface. Right. There's a lot of information. And I want to thank you for
my pleasure.
Holding my hand through this journey, because it is a little scary.
It is, absolutely. There's one thing I just want to say to finish up is sickness is not sexy. So when you're getting rid of your implants, think about being bedridden and not wanting to go out and not being fun to your spouse like you used to be. So do you want implants or do you want to be sick? Sickness is not sexy, trust me. And I've heard that many times. And it's better to be vibrant, your old self, going out, enjoying life again. And that can happen. The beautiful thing about this is a life-changing surgery. It really is.
And it is really complex. It's going to be more than 2 hours. But I want to share with you that many doctors will put you under and with total anesthesia. And I have this thing about total anesthesia. I don't know where it comes from. But one of my questions to Jeff was, do they put me under? And what was your answer, sir?
Well, we use something called TIVA anesthesia, and it's done intravenously, but you're fully out. It's just that there's no gas, there's no narcotics, there's no intubation. So you wake up refreshed in 10 minutes, and best of all, no nausea.
Yes. And that's wonderful. And then another thing is I do want to talk about, post-op, the procedure takes about 2 hours, but post-op, the recovery, when you see these women, what are some of the things that you've seen? Would you like to share what we need to know about, like maybe that we didn't talk about with breast implant illness?
Sure. Post-op, very important because you have to have realistic expectations. And the first thing is, listen, no woman gets implants to want to get them out. You're forced to for health reasons. But in almost every case, as long as you pick the right doctor, you're not going to be deformed. And in fact, most women come out looking better. As long as you have good breast tissue, I can tell you certainly at aquaplastic surgery, you will look terrific. You'll have fullness, cleavage, size, and proportion. So you can look terrific, and healing 2 weeks.
Yes, and after our party here, after our podcast, we're going to talk about the procedures that Dr. Rankin has perfected, and I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Jeff, and we're going to continue the after party and answer questions. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Jeff Rose wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. That's the best ever, Jeff.
Thank you.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. I want to look down now for those of you who've been waiting patiently. And I don't know if you have any questions. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. And that way we know it's a question, not necessarily a comment. It's really difficult for me to read my Facebook page, so I'm going to take out my hand because it's just so tiny. Oh, that's another thing. My vision has deteriorated in the last 2 years. Yep. And when I read that, I couldn't even take a sip of alcohol. There were times where I would take a small sip of alcohol and I was sick. I felt like I have cotton mouth all the time, and I don't even take medication, you know? And I can imagine what people that maybe are, you know, having processed foods or maybe drink a little bit more wine just because they're feeling sick all the time and want to feel better. I don't know, but little by little, I have just walked away from things that I thought was the cause to the point where I haven't had anything, no alcohol to drink. But I still have dry mouth. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm giving this up. But now I'm waiting for the surgery. I'm waiting to finish the book. And so let's talk about some of these symptoms like dry mouth. Share some of the other symptoms while I'm reading.
Absolutely. Headaches, dizziness, blurry vision, as you said, food sensitivities, along with, you know, gas and bloating and digestive issues are very, very common. Mm-hmm. You know, I mentioned endocrine disruption where it throws off the hormones. So weight gain with the inability to lose it is very common. Low libido, irritability,
hormone
cystic
imbalance,
rashes. Absolutely. Very, very
brain
important.
fog.
Brain fog. You know, when, go ahead.
No, after my car accident, I mean, I thought that this was because I had 4 herniated discs, spinal compression, a concussion, and a torn left shoulder tendon. And I thought, okay, well, perhaps this is the concussion. But then it just kept getting worse and worse. And I would forget names. And my husband calls me his little human Rolodex because I remember names. I remember like things pop into my head. And you know, Jeff, doing radio, because I was on the radio, and I couldn't keep up with the demands. I was on 6 days a week, and I reduced it to 5, and then I reduced it to 4. Now I'm at 3, and I just stopped doing radio altogether. And I'm thinking, is this going to make it better? Is this going to make it better? So let's talk about some of the stories, Jeff, that you hear from women say, you know, what are some of the, you know, stories where you've seen they're just sick, and then after the explantation surgery, how are they feeling?
Well, let me give you a specific recent one without mentioning names, of course. There was a patient that had surgery about 5 weeks ago. And this is fairly typical of what to expect. This is not an unusual situation or an exaggerated one, but very typical of a patient's recovery. This patient came in from out of state, had their surgery, and they were in town for a little less than a week, maybe 6 days. And after coming back and getting their drains out, which was about 4 or 5 days later. I actually walked out to get the next patient, to see the next patient. They were sitting in the waiting area, and I didn't recognize them. They said, "Hi, Jeff." And I didn't recognize the person. And she comes up to me, and I look at her, I'm like, oh my God. And her face looked 10 or 15 years younger. And I don't know if you've seen those pictures, but I also call this not only a life-changing surgery, but an anti-aging surgery. Women literally looked 10 years younger after the surgery. Why? Because all the inflammation is leaving your body. And you've seen the pictures of women's faces. They're bloated. They have dull complexion. They're dried out.
Yep.
They have puffiness under the eyes. And the whites of their eyes are all dark and dull. And all that comes back within like a week. And it's amazing. And that's the part, I think, that really legitimizes breast implant illness, because you can't fake that.
Nope.
You can't fake looking 10 years younger. I think we all would wish we could do something to look 10 years younger in a week.
Interestingly enough, Jeff, I mentioned that last week when I was doing my, when I was sharing my story. And my story, you know, the only way I was able to research this was to be able to get myself out of it and think of I was a researcher. And I wanted to do a show on breast implant illness. That was my way of being able to become objective, because when I start thinking about when you told me, no, honey, you're not putting them back in. You can't put anything back in. Because I thought, okay, I'll get them out. If they're ruptured, you know, put some new ones in. And you're like, no, you're classic. You're classic. You're not going to get back those in. And if you do, it's going to be worse, you said to me. And I'm like, whoa, that changes everything now. And I started thinking about, you know, because even though I am not the person who got the implants, I still was thinking like, you know, this was a major part of my body, because it's a part of our body. I never got them. I was told when I first got implants that they would be for life. It wasn't until maybe 10 or so years later that they said, oh no, you got to replace them every 10 years. Where'd that come from? So I want to mention Kimberly. Thank you so much for your comment. She said, how could you not know that implants are bad for your body? Because we trust our doctors. And okay, this is my version. Jeff, I want to give you the opportunity. And because my doctor said it was safe. That was the most research I did. Now, I researched the implants, and there was nowhere in the literature. Back then, we didn't have internet. We had a library, and we had magazines, and we didn't have, in 1995, the internet wasn't what it is today. And even after, when I had them change under the muscle, no one told me. They said that, you know, the people that were sick were crazy, money-hungry women that just had nothing better to do. Well, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't money-hungry. I just wanted to feel complete. That's what I wanted. And so it's just like, you know, doctors tell you, you know, here's this pill for diabetes. But how many of them tell you, if you change your lifestyle, you won't have diabetes. Your diabetes will go away. How many people are on diabetic medication? How many people are on high blood pressure medication? Because that information would be damaging to the pharmaceutical industry, right? And to doctors. Yep. So why do you think that women, don't even get me, Debbie, started on vaccines. Don't even get me started. So here we go. So vaccine safety is what I talk about, because we're being censored if we say anything other than that. So enough said. You can check out my shows on or lessons on vaccine safety. But okay, so Jeff, why do you think still, after all this time, women still don't know that silicone implants are harmful?
Well, for the very simple reason, you said it perfectly. We trust our doctors, and the doctors trust the drug reps that tell them it's safe.
Exactly.
So
I'm a rep. And I'm a
yeah,
rep.
yep. So the cycle is the FDA says they're safe, the drug reps say they're safe to the doctor, and the doctor says they're safe to the patient. That's the cycle that actually happens. So, of course, we trust our doctor. The doctor's not going to do any harm. They take an oath for that.
Yeah.
And
And they don't know. They're not doing it
they don't,
intentionally.
no, they're not. It's not the doctor's fault. In most cases, the doctors, I mean, they're trained when they go to medical school that these things are safe or they would not be put on the market. So
Exactly.
if a drug rep is telling them this has been tested, it's safe to put inside a woman, a doctor's not going to question it. That's what they're trained in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the doctor trying to do any harm. They completely believe and understand that they're actually making a woman feel better about themselves and they're doing good. And the satisfaction rate with implants as far as enhancing their self-esteem, their femininity is very, very high. There's no question about that. I mean, it's the number one plastic surgery procedure that's done in the world. There's 11 million women with implants in the world. So it is the number one procedure that's performed, and the satisfaction rate is very, very high. But as we are learning, a large percentage of these women, very much like medication. I always explain it like this. I'll give you a very quick recent, I did a lecture not that long ago, early in the year, where I had a group of doctors, and most of these doctors were very pro-implant. They didn't believe in breast implant illness. And I just said, let's take off our clinical hats for a second. Let's just use our common sense. Let's forget we're doctors or anything. And I just said, we all know that medications have side effects, right? They're chemicals that go in our body. And we have to disclose that certain medications, well, all medications have side effects, because in medical school, they teach you in order for a medication to have an effect, it has to have a side effect. So a certain percentage of people will tolerate a medication, and a certain percentage of people will get very sick from a medication.
One size does not fit all.
Exactly. So
all.
Same thing applies to implants. That's why some women will make the excuse, well, I know plenty of women that don't have any problems with their implants.
Yeah.
But other women know, I know certain women that have been through this and they're very sick from their implants. So
that lack of connection, Jeff, that lack of connection, you might be sick, but who in their right mind thinks, could it be the implants?
Exactly.
Especially if you don't have that information.
Correct. So what I would say to these doctors, what I have said in these lectures is, now, if we know medication is making you sick from chemicals, a certain percentage of people, just imagine, use our common sense, if we're putting two large foreign objects that contain 40 plus neurotoxic chemicals plus heavy metals,
never knew that.
millimeters above your heart and your lungs, using our common sense, does it make any sense to say that nobody's going to get a side effect from that? It's almost ludicrous. And once I say that, nobody says a word, because you would sound like a fool if you said, oh, that's perfectly safe.
Yes.
Of course not.
No.
So, and that's the analogy I use to understand why it's making you sick.
Yes. And, when you know better, you do better. And that's what, until it happened to me, how many times do I hear that? Until it happened to me, I did not think otherwise. You think, well, it was planted in and that was, okay. So I have this revelation in my life. I have a vision board, and I've talked about my vision board, and I was looking at the word believe in my vision board. And I noticed that the I and the E were red. Everything else was white, but the I and the E were red. And I was going through a frustration moment, and what I was expecting didn't happen. And you know what? It's okay to have moments where you're aware. You should always be aware of how you're feeling. And I was feeling frustrated at the time that what I was expecting to happen didn't happen. And I needed to go through the process of releasing that. When I looked at believe, and all I saw in the metal was the LIE. the lie at the center of belief. So the lie at the center of my belief was, breast implants were good. And if you were a crazy, money-hungry woman who had nothing better to do, which I'm not crazy, I'm not money-hungry, and I have a lot to do, it just didn't fit in with my belief system. So once you learn this new truth, and that's what I push on in the classroom, is I want us to think outside of this limited belief. So I ask the question, what is there? Is there a lie at the center of our belief when it comes to implants? And, many people will dismiss it as, that's not real. Well, I'm not saying to anybody to rush and remove their implants. I do want to give 2 websites so for people to do their homework. Just because you heard it here in the classroom, that's my truth. I want you to research it so it becomes your truth. You're no longer quoting me. It's becoming this is what you believe in because you've researched it. So a couple of websites that help me, and I was talking to Jeff about this, that's how I found Dr. Rankin's name in my own research and in my prayers, and asking God to lead my body to lead me to the right place. There are 2 websites that I want to share with you right now. The first one is breastimplantillness.com. That's breastimplantillness.com. And the next one is healingbreastimplantillness.com. And in healingbreastimplantillness.com, you can go to explant experts, because the one thing that I want you all to get, like Jeff said, this is not a surgery for the untrained. Just because you're a plastic surgeon doesn't make you qualified to do this. And let me tell you, since I have done the research, I've looked at, I had my checklist, and Dr. Rankin, I kept going back to Dr. Rankin. But when I am presented with, this guy's the best, I'm going to call him. I'm going to find out but they don't have the credentials. So what are some of the credentials, Jeff, that we want to look for in a good plastic surgeon like Dr. David Rankin, like Dr. Dev?
Great question, Lillian. Very, very important to learn is, number one, you want them to be a microsurgeon because, as I mentioned, when you're removing scar tissue from the rib cage, it's a very, very intricate, delicate surgery. So you want them to be a microsurgeon. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Also, it's not how many explants they've done. So a lot of women will ask a question, well, how many explants has he done? What if a doctor says, well, I've done 2,000, but what if he's done them all the wrong way? Mm-hmm. So that's not the way you ask the question, is how many arm blocks have you done and how many total capsulectomies have you done where you remove all of the scar tissue? Because that's what's going to get you better. Not the explant surgery itself, but it's...
Although that helps.
Yes, but it's removing 100% of the scar tissue that is imperative for that patient to get better. I mean, there's only, when I'm filming a surgery, there's only 5 steps to a surgery. That's it. Either the doctor does them or they don't. It's the arm block removal cutting technique. It's removing the scar tissue from the rib cage. It's irrigation, which is decontamination and sterilization of the chest cavity with a triple antibiotic solution, because you're removing all that contamination. Number 4 is muscle repair, which is reattachment of the pec major and or pec minor. And number 5 is the insertion of drain. That's it. All the rest is cutting and suturing. So either the doctor, if you want to write those 5 things down, those are the 5 questions you ask the doctor. Do you do these 5 things? If a doctor does not do those 5 steps, time to look for another doctor.
Yeah. I was just recently given a doctor's name who was a great doctor, but he doesn't do reconstruction. Like,
Right.
how do you do this procedure without doing reconstruction? So right there, that eliminated that individual. And I shared that with you, that I
Yes.
was looking at others because, you know, we as women, you know, let me just say, once I discovered that this was a possibility, that this was, you know, what was happening to me, and I had no doubt in my mind, then I am like, I want these out now. Forget the fact that they've been in me for the 2 years that they may have been ruptured from the car accident, but I wanted them now. And it's not about getting the implant out, which is important to get it out as soon as possible, but it's who is taking them out.
Correct. Correct.
Who
Very good.
is taking them out. So I've waited 5 months, but this is the month that the twins are coming out. And I've never, you know, it's the last thing, Jeff, that I said to you. It's the last thing from my youth that has kept me, that I didn't even know, that has kept me from total wellness. Because I kept saying you know, and when I would do shows on certain topics back then, and I'd say, this is something that I'm experiencing, or, you know, I would say, you know, as healthy as I eat, why do I have this symptom? You know, as healthy as I think, why do I have, it just didn't make any sense to me, because breast implant illness is not like the latest and greatest. So one of the things that I've learned, and you may elaborate on this, is there are certain SNPs. So if you've had your DNA tested and there are certain markers that could indicate a potential of rejecting the implants or being more susceptible to the toxins in the implants. And one of them is the Mthfr mutation. Right. So if you, like me, I have a double whammy from my mom and dad with the Mthfr. And so that means that I'm going to have more sensitivities. But Absolutely. Let's talk real quickly. Even if the implants don't rupture, I have been told from the teachers that have been in the classroom that even if they don't rupture, they sweat and they leak. And can you say a little bit about that?
Sure. That's a great point. In fact, that, when you say that they sweat, they leak, the actual term is they bleed. And as they break down, I know, as it breaks down, it's almost like the best way to picture it, to have a picture in your mind, is that it's melting in your body with the body temperature. It's melting, so the chemicals are being exposed gradually. So the melting of the outer shell, and then the scar tissue that covers it absorbs it like a sponge. And that's why the scar tissue becomes the culprit and must be removed 100%. So it's a very, very important point to realize that implants do break down, and that's why the FDA changed it from lifetime devices to 10 years. I always tell women, if they're considering an implant, that it's a lifestyle now. It's not something that you just get one time. You have to commit to a lifestyle. 1 out of every 5 women that I speak to that want their implants out are like maybe in their 40s and 50s, and they're like, I don't want to go through this every 10 years. I mean, I just want to get them out, be natural, be healthy. And that's a very common thing now. I mean, you get to a point like, I'm not going through this every 10 years. To go under anesthesia, the expense, the downtime. I mean, this is not what I signed up for.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So once they realize that, they're like, now it's more acceptable. In fact, a few years ago, Cosmopolitan magazine did an article saying that explanting is trending because the natural healthy look is the in look now. Back in 2016, when they did that article, it made it more acceptable to explant because that big look like Pamela Anderson and other women is looked at freakish now. It's not the in look anymore.
Yeah.
The natural healthy look is what's in now, and being comfortable in your own body that God gave you is what's important, and you'll be happy to have your health any day over that, and you can still look great at the same time. So And that's why I always use that statement that sickness is not sexy. Your spouse would not like you not being that fun individual that you were when you got together with them. They will take you without implants any day of the week than being bedridden, complaining. Nobody wants somebody who is always, not fun to be around, or, becoming where they just don't want to socialize anymore and simply don't want to do the things they used to do.
Yeah.
So it's just, having your health is priceless.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that we need to wake up. There's so many truths out there, new truths that, supported us when there was some information that we received that supported us when we were younger, but as we get older, we learn more and we learn new truths that don't support us anymore. The old truths do not support us anymore, and it's time to move on to the new truth. And I'm so grateful that, and before I realized this, and I share this in my classroom of last Wednesday. So for those of you who want to share, I share my crisis, my health crisis with all of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, as I'm thinking about the journey and all the things that I have gone through, I'm thinking, I'm so grateful that this new awareness has come, that there's a new trend that is coming. And I beg all you men that might be watching today to not promote the kind of body that is unnatural. And although we believe that the implants make it natural, we believe that the prosthetics make it natural, that we believe all that. So we have that belief at the core. There may be a lie at the center of the belief. But the reality is that we were created by our Creator beautifully. And that instead of, and let me tell you, I chose the implants many, many years ago, and I don't believe in mistakes. But what happened to me, if I can help it, because I'm going to be like, hey, I used to sing. That's what I used to use my mic for. But now I'm going to share this information out there. Some people want to hear it. Some people will call me crazy. Not everybody's going to like me. But guess what? I don't care. It's none of my business what people think of me. But what I do know is that I will make sure that no one else that is in my circle will feel less than enough. So men, make sure that when you look at your wives, even if their breasts, one is bigger than the other, or one is longer than the other, or whatever it is, just let them know how beautiful they are. And stop ogling the women's bodies that make us feel like we're not enough. So it's time to wake up. It's time to choose health. And instead of choosing an implant, choose to do the work, the emotional, the trauma work, all the stuff that we talk about here. It is time to wake up and say, why do I want implants? Why do I want to look different than I do? And hey, I am all for plastic surgery, but I'm not going to judge you if you do. But it begs to ask the question, what can I change that's not temporary, right? If the implant is only 10 years, after 10 years, then what? And after 10 years, then what? So it'll be a lot cheaper to work on our spiritual growth and our emotional growth than to just a temporary fix. Does that make sense, Jeff?
100%. Because think about it, getting breast implants, usually I have found that it's usually a temporary fix for somebody. When you buy a house or you buy your new car and you think you got your dream car, or your dream house, or maybe you want implants and you think that's going to buy you happiness. And you know what? Maybe it does for a week, for a month. And you know what? It wears off.
Yes.
And that's what usually happens. It's a very temporary fix. You have to fix what's inside first what is the core of what's making you get the implants. Are you getting them to please somebody else? Or are you getting them to really please yourself? Or is there something that you can do, like you said, emotionally, to get yourself happy with what you have and not have to get something, you know, artificial like a breast implant that not only is it potentially harmful, but it's only temporary. It's only temporary. And 10 years goes by very fast, as we know, unfortunately.
And
So,
faster now as we get
yes,
older.
that's right. So unfortunately, we are going to be faced with that time. I have to get another set. And then if you're not feeling well, unfortunately, you've got to get them out. So you really have to look at the long-term repercussions. And unfortunately, human nature goes against that, where, you know, when we're excited and you're going to get something like an implant, you know, if let's just say you're in your early 20s, you're not worried about 10 or 20 years down the line. You're worried about right now, how it's going to make you feel, the benefits it's going to give you, and, oh, you know, I'll worry about that later, or that happens to somebody else. That's not going to happen to me.
Crazy money hungry women who have nothing better to do.
Yes, listen, you know, men, women, we've all done things in our past that we regret. We can't turn back the clock, unfortunately, but we can go forward. And luckily, as I've always said, is breast implant illness is reversible. Yes. And that's the great thing about it. It is reversible. And Lillian, I am so looking forward to doing a show with you after you get your implants out, start to heal. And you can actually talk about firsthand the benefits that you're feeling, and it becomes so much more dramatic and personal when you're actually living it. And you'll be amazed at how much better you feel. Like you said at the beginning of the show, you get the person back you used to be.
Yes.
That's about the best way to explain it.
Time to get our health back, and no matter what. And so you can't do this nilly-willy. Do your homework, research your doctors. I gave you 2 websites, breastimplantillness.com and healingbreastimplantillness.com. And that way, that gives you a little guide of where you need to go. It gives you the list of symptoms that you can look at. There's also women that are coming out and they're saying, you know, this happened to me, and they're leading the path. I am sharing my journey because I want, you know, and I could have chosen to stay quiet about this because this is personal. This is really personal. But I've shared so much personal stuff in the classroom. And if you know anything about me, I am done with, you know, pretending. I have been done with pretending. You know, I believe, and I didn't even know I was pretending. But once I started doing the classroom, or I was given the show, I wanted all of us to grow together. Well, guess what? I needed to grow too. And fortunately, we get to this place, you know, because people they want to do this, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear it. But then time goes by. And if you're still doing that, it's still there. The issues are still there. So, you know, Jeff, you know, our first conversation was like, you know, it's like, I don't even know how long we talked. And I'm
Over
like, yes.
I remember.
Very memorable. Well, one of the things that I will say is anything in life that we have to go through, give yourself some time to mourn, give yourself some time to process, give yourself time to have a pity party if you want to, but nobody comes to the pity party and nobody brings gifts. It is time to take action. Do whatever it takes to live the life that you want to live, even if it's scary. Do it anyway. And then on the other side, you can look back and say, now I know why that happened in my life, because it taught me that I am stronger, wiser, more beautiful than I ever gave myself credit for. And not only this, people are going to benefit from what happened. So let's find purpose in the pain. Let's find purpose in the in whatever, you know, a mission in your in the madness that and I'm not saying if you have breast implants you're going to go through this, but chances are, do you want to take the risk? So I will, unless there's something else that you want to say, Jeff, and I want to thank all of you. Or is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Just that, you know, I think I'm very, very excited that you made this decision more than anything, because it was a big decision for you. I remember our conversation very well. I know a lot of it was painful, it was an eye-opener, but, you know, I didn't hold anything back. I was very just real with you, and, you know, it just enabled you to get the information that you needed, because I knew you were sick. I mean, I've dealt with enough women to know that you were suffering. And I think the biggest thing with this that I want to finish on is that while we talk about the physical symptoms so much, is the emotional trauma with this is even greater than the physical symptoms. You know, being shunned by the medical community, being told you're crazy when you're not, and just having to go through a lot of things with your family, your spouses, your friends, and where maybe you're thought of as a hypochondriac, they just don't believe you.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of PTSD that goes, you know, with this. Is, you know, a lot of women have gone to the ER and they've been looked at like, you know, drug seekers, or being told they're crazy. It's anxiety, it's depression, and there is huge emotional trauma with this, more so than the physical symptoms. So the emotional trauma can be healed by removing your implants and getting your health back. That's what I want everyone to know.
Very good. Very good. And I'll let that be not the final word, because we are going to continue this. I am committed to this. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Brittany Cara. She is an advocate of vaccine safety and teaching us what we need to know and how to protect our bodies. You know, there's so many things that we have given our power away, and we've also allowed doctors and organizations, pharmaceutical companies, to make decisions over us because they make us think that everything's going to be okay if we take a pill. And as you know, my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. What is the root cause that drives you to do anything in this world? And I think that if we get to be brave and courageous, like the women, I must say, the women in the Breast Implant Illness blogs that are out there, brave, not crazy, money hungry women, very brave women sharing their stories. But it's time for us to come out, and it's time for us to be brave, to take a look at our lives and take a stand for health no matter what, because I'm not giving up on my implants. I'm embracing good health. And I want all of you to see that as well. If you get anything from these, it's not that I'm telling you to take them out. I'm asking you to really take inventory of your life, check out the symptoms in those, and see, could it be? And if the answer is yes, do whatever it takes. Even if it's, for me, like an amputation. And but it's not. It's a realization that we are enough and we are beautiful, and that our bodies are beautifully made to heal once we allow them to heal. So with that, thank you, Jeff. I know this is not going to be the last. It'll be one of many. And I really thank you. Oh, and I must say, I don't know if I've said this already. Did I say this already? Because, of course, brain fog. I can finally admit I've got brain fog out loud. Okay. So did we say that Dr. David Rankin has taken a stand, and he will not do any more implants again? You want to add anything to that, Jeff?
Yeah, we did not say that. I made the announcement last Monday. He made the announcement last Tuesday, but that's right. Starting last week, he will no longer be putting implants in women. That's how much that we believe in it. And that's how much, most importantly, like he says it, the reason I'm doing this is because I keep seeing women getting better every single day and getting their lives back. Yeah. And he feels that medically, is making a difference.
Yes, doctors need to remember why they became doctors, and they need to stop
Correct.
trusting people to give them quick information. They need to do the research too. Shame on any doctor. And by the way, fire any doctor who doesn't look the way you want to look and feel as you grow through your life. And I've fired a lot of doctors since I realized that. You'd never go to a morbidly obese personal trainer. You wouldn't. So when you look at your doctor, if they're smoking and you're overweight and not living a style that can help you, look somewhere else. You got to be your own advocate. And I know that doesn't sound really good, but at the same time, who's going to love you the way you love yourself? So let's stop giving our power away and let's become our own MD, our own medical detective. So hopefully we'll see each other again, and I will keep you posted. I will let you know when my surgery date is, and you will be with me every step of the way. I know that Jeff is going to be recording my surgery. And so,
Correct.
Jeff, you and I are going to get really well acquainted.
Yes, we are. You get very sick and tired of me.
Okay, with that, I'll let that be the last word. We'll see each other tomorrow. I hope you join us. Please share this with everybody. If anyone you know have breast or men who like breasts, make sure you share this show with them so that they know what to do. So we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks,
Say bye.
Lillian.
There we go.
Bye-bye.